Hey, this is your girl Soroya back with another story time, testimony type episode for Kintsugi Talks. Now today this episode is going to be a bit different, and I feel personally is going to be one of the episodes where I'm a bit more open, a bit more honest than I am, a bit more vulnerable than I usually am. And coincidentally, and to kind of segue into it, what we're going to be talking about in this episode is vulnerability and how hard it has been for me and how I've been able to get to this point where I have a podcast and I have a mental health page where I talk about my struggles, and I have a YouTube channel where I've been super open about all this stuff and everything that I've been through, and how it has shaped my faith, who I am as a person, and how I even view God, how I communicate with God, how God communicates with me. So, without further ado, let's get started. Now, before we even get started, I want to get into what being vulnerable actually means. If you guys know me, then you know I love me a good definition. So, the word vulnerable is an adjective, and the definition of it, according to Webster's dictionary, is being capable of being physically or emotionally wounded and being open to attack or damage. Another word kind of similar to that is assailable, which means that you're vulnerable to criticism. Now, with me choosing to be open, it was my choice. It was my choice because that was the choice that God wanted me to do, that God wanted me to walk along the path of. And it wasn't an easy choice in the beginning, and it definitely wasn't easy now. And something that I come to terms with is that it never will be easy. It never will be an easy thing. It has come with a lot of frustration, a lot of questions that I ask myself, and then obviously questions that I get from other people. And I have gotten a little bit of criticism. Not criticism to the point where it's like I'm getting bashed for saying certain things. The most criticism that I have got recently, I also have a TikTok. And on TikTok, I have shared certain videos where I am spreading awareness about things regarding mental health issues, or I am sharing things that are related to my story. In one video that actually went kind of viral in a way, at the moment it is sitting at almost 30,000 views, which is crazy to me. It's very crazy. It's like a testimony video, and I put different things in like captions that I've experienced, that I've gone through, and then the end is I'm saying that it's like I'm still here, I'm still standing, like God was with me through it all then, and He's with me now. One of the things that I put was that my brother had sent, one of my brothers from my adopted side of the family has sent people after me to physically cause harm to me. 3 different people. Two out of the 3 of them raped me. And with the third person, which was the second time that I got raped, I ended up becoming pregnant from it. And I decided to get an abortion because of that. And this is where the vulnerability is coming in. Being a Christian and talking about abortion, obviously we know that in the Christian community, abortion is it's a big no-no. It's a big no-no. Now, for me, I believe that abortion is murder, but for circumstances like mine where I became pregnant because I was raped and I was not physically, emotionally, financially able to care for a child, I decided to get an abortion. It was my decision. I made that decision. That is the only reason why I feel like it's okay to get an abortion. That, and if the person that is actually carrying the child, like physically cannot carry the child because of some terrible, like physical illness type of ailment that has fallen on their body, where it could literally cause them their life to have the child. Those are the only two reasons where I feel that abortion is okay. And to kind of rewind, again, I shared it was like, oh, I got an abortion, and it took me a while to forgive myself for it and all that other stuff. And I received a comment or two. I think it was just 2 comments about it, saying that it's like, oh, how could you commit murder like you did an abortion, all that other stuff. And the way that I explained it now, of why I got it the same way I explained it in a TikTok video. You can follow me on TikTok if you want. It's Soroya the Vessel on TikTok. And I did a video replying to that comment, and I shared the same thing that I just did now, that it's like I wasn't financially, emotionally, physically able to care for a child, and I was also homeless at the time that this happened. So I would be damned if I had to raise a child homeless. Like it wasn't happening. I didn't want to go through that. So yeah, that is an example of me just being vulnerable. And it got me a little bit of criticism, but it wasn't that bad, and I was able to handle it. But in most situations, I would say where it comes to my mental health, it's been a bit of a different story. When it comes to my journey of being vulnerable, being Christian, and also being a Christian who lives with mental illness, it has definitely been a very interesting journey, to say the least. In the beginning, I definitely got a lot more criticism than I do now. I got a lot more people not bumping heads with me, but just people who couldn't understand the fact that I was a person who said that I have faith in God, yet I was dealing with depression and anxiety and dealing with thoughts before, not now, of wanting to take my own life and feeling like I had no purpose and feeling empty inside. They just couldn't understand that. And in my last episode, one of my most recent episodes, I talked about Jesus and therapy, and how one of the things that I talk about in therapy is trauma that I've been through, and a lot of where my mental illness diagnosis come from is trauma. Now, I've had people say to me that it's like, yes, you've experienced trauma, but we have God, and God is strong, and He's able to take all of that away from you. Now, I'm not saying that God can't heal me. I'm not saying that at all. But the healing process from trauma, especially if it is a trauma that has been relived over and over and over again in different forms, it is a very tiring process to have to relive the trauma by figuring out what the root of this is, what the root of that is, why do this, why say that, why think that. It's a very tiring process to figure that out in therapy. And then also bringing it to God, laying it at his feet, and then having God expose you to those same exact things, and him guiding you along the way of how he wants you to act in future situations, what he wants you to say instead of this in future situations. It is a very exhausting thing. And that is why I tell people that I'm always tired. And it's not because I'm sleepy. I'm not sleepy tired. There is a big difference between being sleepy tired and being just emotionally out. Like battery is on, not even on 1%. It's 0. It's dead. And there's a lot of days where I deal with this thing called being desensitized to a lot of things, and where I'm just kind of like on autopilot. I'm on autopilot and I disassociate. That's the word I was looking for. I disassociate a lot. So disassociating is when it's kind of like blacking out in a sense, but like, for example, this happens to me a lot, like currently in my current life. At work, I work with kids. So I could be doing something at the desk. We're working on a project right now for this exhibition day that we have coming up. And it has to do with like the ocean and desert habitats. It's a really cool project and the kids are really into it. So I'm working on my own model of the project to like do like a side by side of what like the teachers did and what like the kids did or whatever. And next thing I know, I didn't even realize that 30 minutes had passed and it was time for us to like get ready for dismissal. So my body in that moment was still working on the project, but my mind was not there. My mind wasn't there. And that happens to me a lot. That happens to me when I am stressed, when I am overwhelmed, which is how I feel a lot of the time, because mentally I'm just dealing with a lot and I think about a lot of things all the time. And I know someone's gonna say, cast your cares on the Lord, like you just have to lay everything at his feet. I am, and I do it every single day. But then every single day I am hit with another trigger. I am hit with another stressor that I didn't think would be a stressor for me. A trigger that I didn't even think would be a trigger for me. I am hit with something that reminds me of something that I am currently going through. And it is a constant thing that I am getting smacked in the face with every day. This is something that I cannot escape from. Unfortunately. This is something that I cannot easily get healed from. This is something that I cannot easily pray away. Even though I pray about it every day. Trust me when I say I do the work, I do the spiritual work. I am doing the emotional work when it comes to therapy. I am doing the physical work. I try to exercise every now and then because exercise is good for the dopamine in the brain. It increased the levels of happiness, the level of energy in the body. I try to do a lot of self-care things for myself. Like I did my nails recently, short square-shaped nail. Painted it, gave myself a little manicure. And the night that I'm recording this episode, tomorrow morning, I plan on doing my makeup. Because when I do my makeup, it gives me more energy to be able to go through the rest of my day, knowing that I look more presentable than I usually do. And that is just me. I know there's other people that could probably relate, and I know there's other people that can't relate. And for the people that can't relate, it's okay if you never understand what I deal with. And this is something that I have to come to terms with on my own. For people that are not willing to understand what me and millions of other people on this earth deal with when it comes to mental health, mental illness, to people who aren't willing to stand in the gap and be there for people who they probably know, whether it be family, friends, a significant other, to people who just always want to give an answer instead of actually actively listening to people who aren't willing to support anyone who struggles with that, that's fine. You don't have to do that, because I have people in my life that do, and I love them for it. And for those people who are listening to this, they know who they are. And I'm saying this just to say it. I'm saying this because I know there's people out there that need to hear this. I'm saying this because at this point, I don't care about the opposite opinions of what people think about me and my life and how I choose to share my story. For people that may have a problem with the fact that I can talk about my faith in God and my struggles with mental health and mental illness like in the same sentence, yes, that is a possible thing, but that is my thing. And if that's not your thing, then let it be. Just let it be. As I said before, this episode is different from the other episodes. This episode is definitely more of a rant episode. And to be honest, I'm happy I did this episode. I'm happy that this episode will be published. It'll be released. And I'm doing this not for other people, but I'm doing this more so for myself. And I'm doing it for people who are probably in my shoes at the moment, that just the frustration that people don't realize that we live with every day, and the choice that I make as a Christian, as someone who lives with a mental illness, as someone who chooses to be an advocate, someone who chooses to have faith in God, because I have seen God work in my life. I have seen it firsthand. He took me out of homelessness. He healed me from cancer 3 times. I am a sexual, physical, emotional, verbal abuse survivor. I was able to get out of a church environment that was not good for me, that I got church hurt from. And I am now in a healthy church environment. I have a community of people who genuinely care for my best interest in all areas of my life. And those people are people of faith and people not of faith. I have family members, a very small amount of them, but I have family members who actually care for my well-being, who understand that I deal with certain mental health issues, and they take that into account and they check up on me. To those family members that actually do that, and you're listening to this, I thank you and I love you very much. And to even to those that don't reach out to me, I still love you. But this is my life. I didn't choose to have mental illness. I didn't choose to live this life. God certainly didn't intend for me to, God didn't intend for there to be a world filled with mental illness and mental health issues. That's what happens. That's what comes with the dark and fallen world because of the fall of man. But that doesn't mean God doesn't have a plan. God has a plan for everything. And I believe Him wanting me to be on this path, this part of my life where He wants me to share this stuff, because this stuff isn't talked about. It really isn't. That's one of the main reasons why I even started this podcast. One of the main reasons why I have my YouTube channel. One of the main reasons why I have my mental health page on Instagram is because this stuff needs to be put out in the open. We can't hide about this stuff anymore. We can't hide about the fact that the suicide rates are going up. We can't hide about the fact that there's a lot of church hurt that happens. We can't hide about the fact that abuse happens to people. We can't hide about the fact that a lot of the abuse from church leads to people having mental illness issues. Abuse that people get from home leads to people having mental illness issues. the fact that people don't know how to have faith in God anymore because these issues aren't being talked about and they feel like they're alone. The fact that people still stigmatize mental health and mental illness in the church still needs to be talked about. All of this stuff needs to be talked about. And I am one of the people that God chose to do something about it and to be open and vulnerable about it, and I'm going to follow his lead. And I said yes to it, and here we are with this podcast, and we're talking about being vulnerable and being open. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and was able to receive something from it. I would love to hear your feedback and thoughts about this episode. If you followed the podcast page on Instagram at Kintsugi Talks Pod, please, you can DM me there. You can also DM me on my other Instagram page, my personal one, which is at Soroya_the_vessel. Make sure to listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. Also, this podcast has a YouTube channel now, and the episode that went up before this was the interview with Paul Granger. That episode is on the YouTube channel if you want to see the visual for it. And of course, the audio for that is up already again on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. And I will see you guys in the next episode. But until then, God bless.